My son has a negative view of women and my husband doesn't see anything wrong with it. My son, 13 male, was raped, physically assaulted, which landed him in the hospital for a little while, and abused over the course of a few months by a woman we trusted. Obviously we are all doing our best to support him and comfort him, but my son's behavior now is problematic. We started counseling for him but he's developed some sort of disdain for women and girls. He avoids them, will be rude if a girl is speaking to him so he can leave, has stopped talking to female friends and says bad things about girls to his brother, which I didn't even know about until my oldest son told me. My husband told him not to say bad things about women and thinks that's all we should do. He thinks his behavior now is okay because of what happened to him. He thinks it's okay for our son to treat women badly. I hate viewing it this way, but to me it seems more like my son is using it as an excuse to be misogynistic, and my husband is enabling him. How do I get my husband to see my point of view and how do I get my son to stop while still being gentle? How do I handle all of this? I would find a family therapist for all of you. This is over Reddit's paygrade. I'm sorry about your son. I hope he recovers from this as well as he can. Your son might have PTSD. You should worry about his mental health, not his attitude towards women. In your text you seem to be dismissive of his rape. That there leaves scars, even for boys. Get therapy. Get therapy too. Your 13-year-old son was raped and you're more worried about how to get him to stop being negative towards women. You think he's using it as an excuse to be misogynistic. Oh sorry, excuse him for being raped. Get help. That's the most disgusting shit I've heard in a long time. Son gets raped. He shouldn't be misogynistic. Son needs a better mom. He is 13 and was raped and the first thing you say about him is that he is misogynistic. No wonder men don't like to talk about their feelings. If you push him on this, then you will just confirm his view of women. Seriously, your son was raped. You should be worrying about that, and not whether he says bad things. Your husband's respond is more sensible and appropriate than yours, madam. Yeah, kid got raped and all, but misogyny. This will not be tolerated. My son is using this as an excuse to be misogynistic. Did you just say that he's using his rape as an excuse? Wow, that's really disgusting. He literally had a traumatic experience, and for someone who's been a victim of sexual assault, his reaction is by no means out of the ordinary. Instead of empathizing with him and trying to get him the mental help he needs so that he can recover, you're literally blaming him for how his trauma manifested. Seriously, what is wrong with you? We got Mother of the Year over here. He probably doesn't hate women, he's afraid of them. This is very traumatizing. A therapist who specializes in PTSD is vital. So many internet hugs from Minnesota. The fact you think that your son is using rape as an excuse is so fucking disgusting. Your son needs help and all the support that he can get. He needs therapy and support from his family. Flip the genders and then say what you just said again. Your son got raped and all I'm getting from you is you dislike how he is speaking to women in his life. It is perfectly natural for a 13-year-old child whom is a rape survivor to be acting this way. The people he is speaking badly to can take it. All that matter is him recovering, and if that means he has to hate women for a while, then that is his healing process. Happens all the time for female rape survivors. Some can't even be in the same room as a guy without having a breakdown. And that is understandable. In this case, your son is using anger instead of despair. Have some fucking sympathy. I think he is using it to be misogynistic, is so disgusting a sentence to hear from the mother of a rape survivor. Yup, seconding the therapist. This seems like an issue that with the entire family, and you need a professional to help you solve these issues. It could cause lots of problems in your future if your son doesn't understand how wrong his mindset is by the time he's an adult. This sounds like a possible PTSD response. It would be a similar situation for a girl to be raped by a man and then be distrustful of men afterwards. Start therapy for him ASAP. You're more worried about his view on women than the fact that a grown-ass woman raped him? There's the problem right there. So your son got raped and hospitalized for it. Now he is understandably lashing out and your first thought is calling him a misogynist. Ever thought that everything he believes have been proven right to him and he is highly traumatized? No, rather call him a misogynist and blame him for everything. That surely will help him and not strengthen his beliefs even more. Lots of female rape victims develop a fear or avoidance of men. Why are you being hard on your traumatized son? You seem like you're dismissing the rape. Secondly, your son prob has PTSD, he's 13 so he's not gonna act like adult. And lastly, it's been a few months. As long as it's not women are shit and deserve to die big uncle bullshit, it will take time. Therapy for trauma, not sexism. I think worrying about his attitudes towards his women is really the wrong way to go. Speaking as a victim of rape and going to therapy, I can say with experience that letting him avoid women right now is kinda the best way to self-heal. My mom and multiple therapists tried to counsel me out of my so-called misandry, and this not only backfired but caused severe resentment. Especially when they came with bullshit comebacks like, "Not all men," and "Man struggles too," as if it was my problem or something. What you do need is get him a good therapist and counselor rather, because he will realize that his path can lead into misery, especially if it's not self-love. You're the reason he has a negative view of women. I don't blame him. You're a piece of shit. But is he wrong from his point of view? I think he needs therapy to get over the anger and distrust, but he will most likely never trust women again. Son is raped. Mother, he's a misogynist. Okay, put yourself in his shoes. You wouldn't like the sex that abused you. He needs counseling and time, lots of time and counseling. It's normal to not want to trust the same sex as your abuser. By forcing him to, you could be doing more damage. Counselors don't have the proper tools or training to deal with this. It's above their skill. You need to contact a proper therapist ASAP. Therapists specialized on victims of trauma and sexual assault, if I may so recommend. Best of wishes to your son, Op. Therapy for him, and definitely therapy for you, as I'm assuming you might be in denial on what your son has gone through. Your child has been abused and raped, and you're harping on the fact that he might be harboring misogynistic views. You may want to check yourself and have some empathy for your son's situation and the priorities you have at the top of your mind. This poor boy, I don't blame him one bit. He's been horribly abused. He needs a quality therapist. He's probably going to have a lot of very reasonable anger towards women for his entire life, but if you move swiftly on this and also adjust your attitude to one of more empathy and support, he might be okay. Maybe he will heal, but he's going to be angry. The fact that this happened, and happened for months, is horrific. I can't even begin to imagine the emotional trauma that he's still entangling. Be glad his anger isn't directed at you. I'd be mad as all hell at my parents. Blaming him for misogyny? The kid was raped. You some feminist or something? He's only 13. Sure, don't tolerate explicitly rude behavior, but imagine if the tables were turned and you had a little girl uncomfortable about being around men. Frankly, this doesn't sound like misogynism at all, but a trauma-induced phobia. He needs therapy, not to be labeled problematic for what is most likely just a psychological defense to help cope with what happened. #GETTHERAPY. For him and for the rest of you. You may have to see more than one therapist until you find someone you and your son are comfortable with. Maybe this is a hot take, but why is this your main concern? Do you feel guilty for what happened to your son, and that's why it bothers you so much? It sounds like you're minimizing what he went through. This isn't really your time to be getting upset. You should be getting your son help. He was raped, physically assaulted and abused for months. Of course he's going to hate women. What do you expect? If he has to as a way to cope, so be it. 1. Therapy. You'll see this in like 99.99% of the comments, and they're right about it. 2. He's not using it as an excuse. When a child is hurt for that long by someone, they may come to not trust people who have similarities to them. It's an explanation for why he's acting like this, but you need to make sure he won't try use it as an excuse, which can be addressed with point 1. 3. Not just any therapist will work, so make sure he knows he can ask for a change in therapist until you guys find the right one for him. This is vile. You are vile. Even if this is fake, you are vile for creating this. I don't have words for how horrible you are for seriously thinking a rape victim is using rape as an excuse. Get therapy, for everyone, especially you. I hate that you say misogynistic, as if he is choosing this excuse. I was once attacked by a biker when I was 15 years old. My parents did nothing. For years and years, every time I saw a guy on a bike, I'd go crazy with hate spews. One day, someone brought it to my attention, asking why I hated bikers. They pointed out not every guy on a Harley attacks women. I had a soul-searching moment, and eventually forgave that guy, and consequently stopped feeling hatred towards all men on bikes. This is a normal reaction by your son. Not an excuse. His counseling will help navigate his feelings towards women now, but it may take time for him and patience from you. Back off and give him time to heal. You need to leave him alone. He was raped and is suffering, scared, and from the type of person that you are, he's also alone. You are focusing on him being misogynistic even though he was fucking raped. If your daughter was raped and became misandristic, would you say the same? Because if not, then you are not fit to be his mother, let alone anyone else's. If you had a 13-year-old daughter who was raped and abused by a man, would you be more empathetic and understanding towards her for hating men? Would you call it an excuse? Oftentimes parents are not the best therapist for dealing with their children's traumas. It's probably best to continue taking your son to therapy. It may take years to see progress. Overcoming childhood trauma during one's formative years is rarely as easy. Best wishes. It's not good, but it's understandable. Women experience similar things sometimes after being raped. He needs therapy, and you also need to speak with a therapist about how to help him through this. I know you mean well, but focusing on what you perceive as negative behavior in the aftermath of all this is most likely more harmful than helpful. But to me it seems more like my son is using it as an excuse to be misogynistic. Wow. You do realize what your son's just been through, right? You wouldn't blink an eye if your daughter was doing this to men if she'd been raped, hospitalized, and abused by an adult male for months. The fact that your mind went here comes across like you've got misandrous tendencies bubbling in the background and are projecting like crazy. You need to get your ass into therapy so you can be a better parent to your highly traumatized son. It's not okay for him to treat women badly, but don't try to force him to like them, or be around them if he doesn't want to. That's not going to help him. Please be patient with him. It takes time for him to fully understand everything. I myself was molested before, till now I still have flashbacks. It's been 20+ years now. You're really worried that your son has misogyny, using his abuse as an excuse instead of worrying about his mental health and such? Like, are you fucking serious? What the fuck are you thinking? The way you can handle this is getting off your fucking high horse about views on women and focus on getting him help. And FFS, get a psychiatric or something. You're mentally deranged to say something like this. A similar experience happened to me at 11. Though my feelings towards men came out as fear and aversion to anything remotely sexual as opposed to anger. A boy's trauma could manifest much differently. Hate as a cover for fear and pain and all the other turmoil he's experiencing. The behavior is a symptom of his suffering. If he grows into a full-blown woman hater, he will have a tough time getting through life as a heterosexual male. If he gets some therapy for the trauma and coaching at home, he should come around. It's like getting bit by a dog and being afraid of all dogs. Therapy. Your son is working through a ton of trauma here. Reducing it to just misogyny is going to harm him more. Get family counseling. Get counseling for yourself. Let him work through it in his own time. If your kid were to be a woman, would you treat this the same? This is not just bad behavior that gets corrected by basic parental skills. This is not an issue that your husband or you correct with taking TV privileges, or grounding him. This is an issue that needs to be addressed by a mental health professional. He's probably learning about the double standards around female on male assault and is feeling pretty tired of the world he was put into. Family therapy. Family therapist. Best advice I can give you. I have to ask, how's his support been in regards to coping with being raped by someone he thought he could trust? His attitude towards women is a cause for concern, of course, but surely him getting treatment and help to overcome this experience might help with that and should be top priority before he falls in with women-hating groups.